What's happening? Oh, it's 8:01. Oh, hey, we are live. What's
It's
up?
the
It's been a
it's been
minute
a
since we've
minute.
done this. It's been a minute. What's up, wrestling fans?
It's the Two Bros Wrestling Show, and we are going to see if we recall how to do this. Doug, what do you think? We have a
Uh,
shot at that.
we are clearly off to a stellar start. So,
It is going to be a stellar show, though. I promise you that. We do have a change in tonight's main event. We were going to hold on. We're going to put a hold on our What's on Win show because, gosh darn it, we thought during this little bit of a hiatus we were going to, Tony Khan was going to spill the beans, and then we will be able to talk about all of the TV rights and where every show's going in WWE, where every show's going in AEW. That's going to be coming soon. We will talk about it when it happens, but because it has yet to be official, tonight's main event, instead, Doug, we are going to talk about the deal that is reportedly in place for AEW. Many sources say it's already done. Tonight's main event is going to look at what that rumored deal entails, how the relationship between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery has evolved, and what to expect moving forward, including what we hope. But first, I probably should just thank you for holding. Well, maybe not you. Maybe I need to
there's a little
thank
fuzzy creature or some kind. I
one
think.
British, like one big British eyeball. I guess is who I need to thank.
One big British eyeball. Yeah.
Well, thank you, British eyeball.
Will you leave me alone?
I promise I will not do so again. Well, I'll probably be doing it here again shortly. But before I leave you alone, I will give you an opening bell. I do remember how to do that. I do know that we have news to talk about.
Have you had a chance to do news? I know you've been traveling quite a bit, my friend.
I am a little behind on my wrestling, but I've caught up quite a bit. And even though there is a lot that has occurred during our late summer hiatus, we're only going to cover some of the highlights just to make sure we have time for our main event. Some of the bigger stories, and even some of the more recent stories that isn't old news by now. So we're going to start with a nugget, Doug, that was, in my mind, one of the bigger stories. I say nugget because it was dropped so casually by the new Raw announce team this past week. But to me, this is some of the biggest news in the wrestling world in quite some time. And that's after 12 years as a 3-hour broadcast, WWE's flagship show, Raw, is returning to its original 2-hour format. Airing from 8 to 10, and this change will begin on October 7th and will continue for the rest of the year when Raw leaves USA. Now, the word on whether or not Raw remains 2 hours after moving to Netflix, it's mixed. At first, the reports were Raw would go back to being 3 hours when the Netflix era begins. Then Dave Meltzer chimed in and said that no, this is probably permanent in 2 hours. And now the reports seem to be landing somewhere in between, that nothing is decided. And because it's Netflix, it's fluid. So on Netflix, there will be ads, which is part of why Netflix wanted so badly to get Raw to be part of their new business model, right, of ad revenue. But you don't necessarily have to have the same number of ads or the same length of ads or even the same placement of ads as you do on traditional television. So you could take you could take all the wrestling and the promos and things in a 3-hour USA broadcast and probably fit it into 2.5 hours on Netflix. Or because you don't have another show coming up afterwards, you could do an overrun. No big deal. You could have a 2-hour show. You could have a 4-hour show. It really doesn't matter. And it does sound like they might be leaning more towards, we'll let it go as long as it needs to go. That way it adds some unpredictability into your main events. Like you're not looking at the clock going, well, this match has 3 more minutes left, which we all do. And no more of those annoying, picture-in-picture or after ad breaks and all that kind of, no interrupting the matches. You can just put all the ads at the beginning or all of them in the middle. Overall, Doug, though, we for the longest time have just said Raw is too long. Like just way.
It is too long. Absolutely. So do you think we kind of get like old school television, like talk shows now, where, in the middle of the show, the announcers just break into, hey, are you thirsty? drink some stuff from this black cup, kind of things.
It's very possible. I mean, we're not that far away from that era right now when you talk about the
Yeah,
prime hydration
right.
station sitting right to the left of the
Exactly.
announce team on most nights.
Seems like a logical progression to me. So,
I hope, though, that this next couple of months shows Triple H and the team that there really is no need for a show to be 3 hours unless it's a pay-per-view once a month. I definitely think you could tell better, tighter stories and not wear out your audience with that 2-hour format. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it holds.
I think Paul understands that, he doesn't need 3 hours on Monday night. So,
and really the reason even the last 5-6 years, WWE creatively knew it wasn't good for the art. It was good for the ad revenue. You got that extra hour of ad revenue. If that's not really a factor anymore, and it's just ads that, the ad revenue that Netflix is inserting in there, you don't have to worry about that third hour somewhere. Why bother? Like, just let the show go as long as it needs to go and then just sign off. I like that idea myself.
I do too.
Doug, this next one's kind of related to our opening story because there's a lot of transition happening with WWE TV right now. As we mentioned, that we're obviously going to be talking about the fuller landscape of wrestling when we know it. But obviously, SmackDown moved back to USA this Friday. But there is relating to that. We need to put a bow on all the changes that are happening when we know them. But for now, this SmackDown move has begat another change that we hadn't really talked about or thought about, and that's the streaming deal that WWE has had with Hulu. Hulu, for the last 5 or so years, has been the next day home to both Raw and SmackDown, along with first-run episodes of WWE's Main Event and other various WWE programming. However, this arrangement is nearing its end. The contract allowing Hulu to stream SmackDown has already expired, so if you're looking for this Friday's SmackDown on Hulu, you will not find it. Already, next day, streaming of SmackDown is transitioning to Peacock. As for Raw, Main Event, NXT, Level Up, and the various other WWE shows, like some of the reality series and things, all those are different licenses, but those will reportedly be leaving Hulu as well, most by the end of September 25th. So if you're a Hulu subscriber in the middle of some of these series, you better get to watching this next week and a half to make sure that you get finished.
Wow. I'm just thankful that my DVR and my TV are smarter than me, because I did not realize that SmackDown had moved.
Yeah. And then, NXT's coming shortly, which actually leads me to this next story, and actually does not necessarily bode well for the NXT brand. We have a change that just was announced like 2 days ago, and that's the second week of NXT's move to the CW, that event that they're having in St. Louis where, they're trying to get people in there by promising Randy Orton and all this kind of stuff. Well, that event is being moved from the Enterprise Center in St. Louis to the factory in Chesterfield, Missouri. And they're offering refunds and exchanges. Didn't state explicitly why the change, though one can presume it's low ticket sales, because the Enterprise Center can seat 18,000 people, while the factory can only seat 3,000 people.
Oh, wow. That's quite a difference in venue. Wow.
Not a great omen for a brand that was reportedly looking to tour again and leave the Performance Center days behind. Not a great start for week number 2 if you're already having to move to a smaller venue in order to, make it look full.
It's definitely not, but I think it does, speak volumes about all the trouble that AEW has had, because even though AEW is like the number 2 promotion, they're still, unfortunately, a distant number 2, more competitive with something like NXT, I think, than the big 2 from WWE. And so look what they can't fill either. So
exactly. And this is a time of overall pretty strong ticket sales for WWE. So I hate that, because NXT is really doing well creatively, in my opinion. I had hoped to see them touring again so that we could go see a show, but this
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that won't happen. It's just not out of the gates, not a strong start.
Yeah.
More changes to report in the land of WWE. Also kind of related, but TKO president Mark Shapiro recently was speaking at a conference when he revealed that WWE would be scaling back on live events. In particular, Shapiro made it clear that WWE doesn't need more of what he described as, quote, marginally profitable shows on their already busy road schedule. He said Vince used to keep them on the road to build the brand. And with WWE being on fire, ticket sales strong overall right now, that there isn't a need to be running these smaller shows and keeping people on the road night after night, especially in those markets where it might be less appealing financially. Shapiro said that last year they did more than 300 shows. This year it'll be around 250. By the end of next year, they're going to be closer to 200, which is a very significant difference. Doug, let's unpack this for a minute because I could argue this one both ways, as good and bad. Obviously, the good is, workers get a chance to heal. They don't have to be as on the, less chance for injury, less travel, more time with your family. The bad, I don't know how this affects wrestler pay, especially those not on guaranteed deals that might be getting paid by the date. Also, smaller market fans just may not get to see live WWE come to your town anymore. You might be expected to travel to the closest big city to you, or they might make fewer appearances in your neck of the woods. So I definitely can see the good and the bad to this. I understand it that we don't necessarily need it. It's not necessarily a big part or the biggest part of our business anymore. Those live house shows. AEW doesn't really do house shows.
That's what I was going to say. I think AEW has kind of established that you don't need that constant on the road schedule and those lighter schedules, especially with the talent that AEW and both WWE have. They can kind of rotate people out. Although I don't like that AEW thing where people just fall off the roster for like months at a time and then they show up again. You're like, oh yeah, where's this guy been? I don't like that, but
yeah, I guess we'll see how it plays out. We'll keep tabs on it. That's obviously something that they could scale either up or down. But if your profit margins come in about the same and you're doing 100 less shows a year, I would not expect these to return anytime soon. Obviously, if they're down 50 last year over to this year and they're doing so well financially, they can definitely see a path forward where less is more when it comes to the cost of staying on the road.
I would like to see something in the contracts then for the guys who aren't on those guaranteed contracts where they can, pick up additional dates, on the indies at least.
And I bet you that's how we end up finding out how this is going, because it's going to be the men and women whose wallets are potentially affected that are going to start talking about whether or not they like this decision. All right, Doug. Several sources have come forward this past week to say WWE has officially inked the Motor City Machine Guns and that they will be starting in NXT very soon. We reported on this a while back. I'm excited.
Man, Motor City Machine Guns, Lucha Bros.
I know, man.
Both headed for NXT, it sounds like. So
more reason to start watching NXT. That tag division's about to get insane.
Yes, it is.
I'm not actually going to end on this one. I'll throw one more at the end because I don't want to end on sad and ugly news, but probably do need to report on this, and that is Nikki Garcia, aka Nikki Bella, has filed for divorce from husband and Dancing with the Stars personality Artem, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name, but the divorce filing comes 2 weeks after Artem was arrested for domestic violence. Nikki is seeking sole custody of the couple's only child, 4-year-old Mateo. In a counter-filing, Artem is asking for joint custody and is asking the court to have Nikki pay his court fees and provide him financial spousal support.
Come on, man. Come on.
We'll obviously update more as this unfolds, but it's just a sad situation. Just sad situation. I will say, kind of related back to an earlier story though, because I checked out my own like Hulu account to see what might all still be in there with all the WWE programming leaving. Nikki Bella Says I Do, the reality series, is still there. And I don't know about a rewatch of that one before it leaves, but I'm guessing it's not going to have aged well.
I thought you were going to tell me you had a bunch of Dancing with the Stars you needed to catch up on. So I'm feeling better about this now.
Just a sad, just awful situation. So that is why I will instead end on good news and a plug. And it's something we've mentioned before was happening, but today is the day. Today is the day that Heels, one of the greatest series never seen about professional wrestling, is finally available on Netflix. Finally available in front of a much larger audience than Stars, the network on which it originally aired. All those involved, from the creator to the Stars, say they would love for this to continue and have left open the door that if it does well on Netflix, now that it is on the world's largest streaming platform, if it does well enough that third season payoff of their cliffhanger may actually happen. So once you're done watching the Two Bros Wrestling Show,
go binge Heels. Absolutely. Stay up all night, binge it. You don't need to go to work tomorrow. You need to binge 2 seasons of Heels.
And if you have seen it, I'm going to say, I've seen it. Doug, you've seen it. I'm going to watch it again.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't sleep anyway, so I know what I'm doing tonight now.
It's a fantastic series, well worth your watch. If you haven't seen it, especially if you haven't seen it, watch it. If you have seen it and want to see more of it, watch it again.
Yes.
And that's much better news than domestic violence stories.
Indeed it is. Kevin, what's going on with Tony Khan? His 80, 90, almost completely sure it's done. Not yet. I can't talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it everywhere I can talk about it deal. What's happening with this?
That is why we have a main event tonight, Doug, and that's because Tony Khan is just one of those guys, and you got to kind of love him for it, that even when he says he can't talk about it, all the dude does is freaking talk about it, right?
Have you ever seen anybody that was clearly just made to be this Carney level promoter besides Tony Khan?
I mean, he is perfect for that. And I will just say this, if you have a secret, maybe don't tell Tony Khan.
No, don't tell Tony.
What do we know about the current TV rights situation for AEW? Let's maybe go a bit through the journey this has taken, because Tony has been talking about it the whole time. There was, for a brief period of time, a possibility, not a really strong possibility, but a possibility that AEW programming may leave TBS and TNT. But Tony Khan recently, again, in his not talking about it, but still talking about it moments, asserted that AEW on TBS and TNT is, quote, here to stay, unquote. So that has led many to assume that either a deal has been reached and is signed, and Tony's just waiting for one of his, have a big special announcement moments, or that it's practically in place in principle and just need to dot a few I's and cross a few T's. So even though it's not yet official, tonight on our main event, we're going to look at the history between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery, where it started, how it's evolved, what is rumored in this upcoming deal, what it means for AEW and its talent, and finally, a few things we hope get accomplished. So let's start at the beginning, Doug. Warner Brothers has been the only TV partner AEW has ever had. And, you look at something like WWE, the leader, and yes, USA has had historically been their home, but, they had their TNN era. They were on Sci-Fi, they had they were on, what was it? The CW before it was Universal, UPN. Yeah. I mean, they've had numerous.
That's right.
But Tony's really only had one partner, and I don't know what you think, but we have discussed this in their news quite a bit over the last 6-7 months, anticipating all of this, and we have said, and at the time, and I think that I still believe it, that of all of the possible landing spots that AEW could have had, that really moving somewhere else was not optimal, really, that there was going to be very few landing spots possible for them that would be any better than being on one of the top, on two of the top 10 cable networks like they have in TBS and TNT. So you have to think that regardless of what the financials are, and we don't necessarily know what they are, that staying put is probably the best case scenario for AEW, wouldn't you say?
I agree. I mean, they've already established themselves, and there's for this old Mark anyway. There's this kind of cool old school feel about it. The only thing else Tony could do is come on, like at 8:05 on Wednesday nights. But I mean, having the affiliation with these, Turner affiliated, stations anyway, part of Warner Brothers Discovery, I think that adds a little nostalgia, at least for me anyway, and it just makes a good fit. But from a business point of view, they are established, they are nationwide. I mean, look what's happened to TNA Impact throughout the years when at one point they were a legitimate contender, just like AEW coming up through the ranks. It just kind of fizzled out there, but
But that's an excellent point. Why did it fizzle out? How many TV? I mean, it was all about the TV they had. They went from distant but still a number two.
Yep.
And then the more they bounced around and the more that they bounced further down the ladder of availability, Destination America at one point is where they were. They just became hard to find and people stopped watching. And I think that AEW ran a really legitimate risk as a still of a young company, not 5 years in the market just quite yet. They had a real vulnerability of if they fell off of a TBS or a TNT and ended up on like an Access or something where New Japan currently is, you would definitely lose all of the momentum that you've built up over the last 5 years. I do believe that would have possibly been a death blow to what Tony Khan is trying to do as a strong number two.
Yes, absolutely.
So Dynamite flagship program, 2 hours. They started with that. Tony supplemented that with YouTube shows and some programming there. Obviously, the relationship with Warner Brothers was strong enough and blossomed and evolved into the addition of Collision as well as Rampage. So now they have 5 hours of TV on Warner Brothers Discovery. We can't talk about those 5 hours and the potential of a new deal without at least mentioning the reality of the fact that this deal, when it does get officially announced, is coming amidst what probably wasn't the strongest negotiating position for Tony Khan, in that the fact that all of the ratings on all 5 hours of those shows have fallen off significantly over the last year.
Mm-hmm. And, really those house shows, like we were just talking about, filling those shows, they don't really have house shows where they travel. So, those arenas aren't exactly full. They're not sellout crowds of 15, 16,000 people like WWE can consistently do right now, which I don't know. I don't know about that. That's got to be, put Tony in a tough space when he is negotiating. But then you look at his pay-per-views. Look what he turns around with those. Consistently there, too. Consistently selling great, bringing in great numbers.
So you have to sort of take it all in, that while he might not have been in the strongest negotiating position because ratings were down, he still offers a couple of things that networks like. It's programming that's a bit of being streaming proof, in that it's live. And because it's live and people don't want spoilers, it's, live sports programming is one of the few things left, along with maybe breaking news, that doesn't cause people to just cut the cord and wait on. And because of that, it is programming that even if it isn't getting the ratings it did at the beginning, it's still a consistent rating for the network, as well as it's inexpensive to produce compared to dramas and other things. So from the perspective of a Warner Brothers Discovery, this can fill a lot of hours and get a consistent base audience that we can sell ads to, and it doesn't cost us very much in the grand scheme of things. Yes. So there's always been, though, rumors, and Doug, we've never really known what the actual financial relationship is between AEW and Tony Khan. But it's always been rumored that AEW's current deal, the one that's expiring, was favorable to the network, with AEW picking up a lot of the cost of programming, which kind of makes sense. You got a billionaire who's the son of a billionaire. You kind of got a proof of concept, right? This first deal was like, hey, you just give us the TV space and we'll deliver ratings for you, and it'll
let
work.
us prove ourselves. We've got this, but we need the opportunity.
So, Tony has, I guess, in my mind, proven that over the last 5 years, it's a viable business. And for the network, I'm sure, even though we don't know where he's at now in his deal, again, the rumor's always been that he has been kind of footing the bill for a lot of it, or Dad has been footing the bill for a lot of it.
Yeah.
Meaning they maybe have been breaking even. There's talk that, he's not necessarily losing his shirt, but he wasn't making anything on it either. Obviously, if we don't know what the current deal is, it's hard to compare it to the deal that hasn't even yet been announced.
Right.
But reporters like Dave Meltzer have been saying things like this deal being probably twice the amount of money that AEW is currently getting. So whatever that number is, whether it's on the low side, whether it's break even, whether it's just slight profitability, if you're about to do double, it goes a long way in making sure that the future of AEW is a sustainable business model.
Yes, absolutely. And we don't really have any information about how long this deal was, because didn't they originally have like a 3-year with an option for 2 more? Isn't that
and
how
we're ending 5? Yeah, that's how we got to the 5.
And that's what I was thinking. I can't remember if it was I was thinking it was the 3 with an option for 2, not a straight 5 to start with. So they proved themselves up to year 3 and got themselves the 2-year extension. So now it's thumbs up, woohoo! But you wonder how strong of a position, because they let the exclusive negotiation period expire. Warner Brothers Discovery did. It was almost to go ahead and go see what else is out there and then come back to us. So
I'm going to imagine there wasn't much out there, or if there was, it was regardless of what the financial was, that it didn't make sense ratings wise to take a step down. Somebody might have ponied up more money or similar money, but Warner Brothers Discovery offers access that not a lot of folks have, because honestly, WWE has done so well to diversify their upcoming, like they're on network, they're on cable, they're on streaming. They have definitely looked at the overall television landscape and how TV is changing, and they knew that they needed to have a little piece of all of that, and they went out and got it, and in some ways took away some of the better plan Bs that Tony Khan might have had. Yeah. So I do think that Warner Brothers Discovery knew that, hey, we've made you a good offer. You're not going to find something better. You just go out if you need to. We'll be here waiting. And that's where it sounds like we are.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with that. Warner Brothers Discovery have maybe not the deal that Tony wanted, but can they lowball him still, even with a better offer than what he initially had, but still lowball because of just telegraph something that Warner Brothers let that exclusive period expire and Tony came back?
Now, Tony is a carny, as you say, and a very excitable one, but
very excitable.
Do you think he has the poker face to make a lackluster deal sound fantastic? Because he seems, if you watch him talk about it, he seems downright giddy. So I imagine either he's got a better poker face than I ever gave him credit for, or he legitimately is satisfied that the financials of this are going to be so much better than whatever it is that they've been working off of.
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, Tony is a businessman. I mean, he's a billionaire mark too. So anything that comes across as better than what he had is better than what he had. Yeah.
And better than what he had. If it is double, what does that mean? Double the money.
Yeah. What does that mean?
That means more money that can be put into production, which is something that I think that AEW needs to maybe address as looking more into improving the production end of things, as well as potentially more in wrestlers' pockets. I know that Tony has signed some pretty decent contracts, but let's be honest, even though he's taken in quite a few folks, he's also here lately been outbid quite often by WWE. And this gives him more leverage when it comes to trying to secure international talent, free agents of any sort, luring people maybe away. Maybe he can start to do that again, because that was kind of what we saw for that, that really hot run that AEW started off on. And here the last couple of years, it's been more, Lucha Bros and Cody and just, the big names leaving, Jade, Cargill. Maybe with some more money, they will not be as distant a number two, and there might be more to put into the big money contracts for your bigger stars that might actually make a difference.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I don't want to see Tony just go on a spending spree again, and just buying up all this talent that he never uses or gets scattered about. And honestly, I'd love to see something come from ROH with this deal too. Would love to see that.
That actually is a fantastic transition, both those points, because what we also don't know, in addition to the financials exactly, is what this means for the TV schedule. Will it stay the same? We know that AEW recently filed for trademark of AEW Shockwave, leading some to think that there is maybe a new show as part of this deal. In fact, though, for me personally, I'd rather see them stay at the amount of TV they're at now, maybe flip Rampage to be an ROH show, because I'm not sure that AEW needs more TV. Doug, would you rather see a new AEW show, have them stay the same, or even maybe reduce the number of TV shows? Heck, we just talked in our opening story. WWE is actually cutting an hour of weekly programming, and we're excited about it. Where do you think that Tony Khan in this new deal needs to be on the hours of TV he has? The same, more, or less?
Man, I think you nailed it when you were talking about, Rampage becoming ROH. ROH Rampage, absolutely, yes, do that. That gets ROH talent on TV on a Friday night. You still have your Dynamite, your Collision, still there on network. That, I think, is the way to go. That would be great. Although I would love to see something with the pay-per-views akin to what, Peacock has with WWE.
I definitely want to talk pay-per-views with you first, but I want to hit on that ROH point one more time before we leave it, because that's the fact that with all of the rumors we are discussing here, and a lot of this is conjecture, I do think the fact that there's no real heat in that rumor mill regarding ROH is one potential negative amongst all of these rumored positive. It's at least something that would worry me if I was primarily an ROH talent that rarely appeared on AEW television, the fear of being the lame duck brand, because with everything we're hearing, whether it's Shockwave or possible streaming or no one, literally no one is talking about this deal possibly having an ROH component to it, which I think is worrisome for the future of that brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony's got the libraries, which are great. And he's trying to keep it alive, but having it behind a paywall like it is now,
no, it definitely needs to be part of this deal. I have not heard that, and although, if it was even possible, you'd think that would be being discussed, because here's more speculation. This is being mentioned in more than one outlet, and I don't know what to make of this, but you've probably heard this as well, that there's talk of a possible Fox component to this deal. Have you heard that?
I was searching for that again right when we started to see if there was any scuttlebutt on the Fox deal, but other than some flirting with Fox, and Fox being interested in a cheaper wrestling property than AEW or WWE, because I guess they recognize the finances there, but
What do you make of that? Do you think that's just talk because of WWE and Fox parting ways? Or do you think there's actually something to that? Because Fox would be outside of that Warner Brothers Discovery family. It would be Tony diversifying some. And I just don't know that I put a whole lot of stock into those rumors. I feel like Tony, at the size his company currently is, doesn't have the same type of negotiating power that WWE has to let all parties be fine for promoting Netflix on USA and the CW on, USA. I think that Warner Brothers Discovery probably wants some exclusivity. So I don't think this Fox deal is anything but a red herring.
Yeah. They don't really have that. I mean, if Punk were still in AEW, ooh, how bad would that be? But if Punk were still in AEW, I think, they could have some more stroke with negotiating with, say, your Foxes and getting onto like major networks like that. But yeah, business wise, it makes sense for Fox too, though. So it's kind of hard for me to call because I can see both sides of it, really. Because I mean, they lose WWE, but see how cheap it is to produce and how it does bring in money, and they can make a smaller deal and get money, get some investment or return on some of their investment. But is it worth it?
And if the rumors are to be believed, it is definitely a smaller deal that would be worked on, not just financially, but even from the network side. AEW would not be on Fox, the network. AEW would be on FS1 or FS2, one of the other Fox properties. I could see something like that possibly, maybe down the line. But at this point, I don't see it. Lastly here, maybe not lastly, I do want to wrap it all up, bottom line it. But before we get to the bottom line, I think the biggest piece of this to me is something you alluded to earlier. I think you'll agree with me is paramount to this whole deal being a success for AEW and fans. And that is that most outlets, including the Wrestling Observer, are saying 100% that pay-per-view streaming rights on Max is a part of this deal. To me, if that is in fact true, that is the biggest plus to whatever deal that Tony announces, is that those pay-per-view rights go to Max, which apparently is what's going to happen.
Absolutely. That's sort of been telegraphed, in some of the international Max outlets in the past, a couple of months anyway, that we've reported on here. But that would be just from a wrestling fan, from, a $60 out of my pocket every month.
I mean,
come on.
Do the math on that. How much that costs to keep up with the pay-per-view product of AEW versus the pay-per-view product of WWE. That value ratio is not even fair on the pocketbook when you compare the two. It's just way more cost prohibitive to be an AEW fan and consume everything via the legal channels right now. So this would be huge, absolutely huge. I guess though, what we don't know as part of that, they're saying absolutely that exclusive streaming rights are part of the deal, which would make it a win regardless. But we don't know if it's yet structured like UFC, where you would have to pay per pay-per-view event still, just do it through Max, or how WWE does it, having everything under one price point on like Peacock. So I'm obviously, for my pocketbook, hoping for the latter as opposed to the former. But that is something that is yet to be seen.
Tony, ink that deal, brother, so we can talk about this for real.
Why do you think it is that it's not been announced, Doug? I really did think that when I scheduled the show so far out to, kind of bottom line and everything, is that we knew it was close, and it was in some circles saying it was even done. Tony loves his big announcements. We have the 5-year anniversary.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I was double checking myself, but that's why that 5-year anniversary coming up. That's where Tony, and it's probably killing him not to announce it already.
He loves those big announcements. I know that the 5 years is like October 2nd, something like that. But the week before is like the last show, the last Dynamite in September is their annual Grand Slam event, which is kind of a pay-per-view on television. He could do it then in advance of the 5-year. I do think, and I know we've thought this for months now, but I do feel like we're close, right?
Really
3 weeks, 2-3 weeks.
Absolutely. If not at the 5-year anniversary show, before then, because Tony just can't keep it. What would be really cool is if they do like a contract signing in the ring, and then things go completely sideways, and he works it into an angle. That's
Let
what
the scapegoat come in, go screw it up for him. when it comes to this deal, Doug, what is it that no, we've really talked about a lot of it, but as far as what we as fans want to see out of this deal, I would say that ROH and streaming are the two biggies for me.
Absolutely.
And I do think that there's an opportunity, even though, and I'm not slagging them by any means, they do a great job for a number two. But if they can use that money, we attended a Dynamite not that long ago, and I attended SummerSlam, and you can, all you have to do is walk around the back of the building and take a look at the production trucks, and there's a huge gap between the two when it comes to production. I'm not saying that AEW needs to try to copy WWE. You're not going to do it. You just don't have that kind of money. But I do think that Tony, for as good as he does, there's definitely room to make it look even more professional and up his production game in a way that could draw eyeballs.
Absolutely. First of all, you got to get out of a place in Texas where all those collisions were. Get out of there. That just looks cheap.
Yeah,
but
and sometimes it does look cheap. That's the thing. And it, Doug, I mean, that is exactly what it was. They were trying to be cheap. Yeah. They were trying to save money, and it looked like they were trying to save money. Double your money may mean that you don't have to look like you're trying to do it on the cheap, which does hurt the product.
It really does, and also cannot help you in negotiations when the deal's not completely sealed yet, and you've had to move 6, 8, however many shows it was to, like replace the size of my studio here and run it out of here. Not cool.
So, not cool, man. But what will be cool is this new TV deal securing for wrestling fans. What it means for us is that anything that provides a strong second brand not only keeps more men and women working, not only gives us more entertainment, not only gives us different flavor of wrestling than what WWE would produce, it keeps WWE on their toes and makes them better. So the whole wrestling landscape benefits if AEW is able to stick around. And make no mistake about it, this negotiation is an attempt for Tony Khan to keep his business idea around.
Absolutely.
So we will stay on top of this story. And as soon as it breaks, we have it in our back pockets. We are going to give you that entire breakdown. We'll go day by day throughout the wrestling calendar and let you know what wrestling is on that day and where you can now find it. Definitely, you will want to see that show when we have it. We will actually preempt anything else we have to make sure that we have this show for you, because I really think it's that important. This is, outside of WWE being sold and Vince McMahon being ousted, I think that this is going to be the biggest wrestling story of the last couple of years outside of that, just because the wrestling landscape has never changed as much as it is about to change in both WWE and AEW with all these new negotiations of TV rights.
And it already has started to change. Maybe we should have my TV on that show instead of me, because clearly it was smarter than me and knew where to find SmackDown. Because it went ahead and recorded it for me.
And hopefully your alls did too, but the two bros got your back, and we will make sure you know what's on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There is something to watch every day. It might just be in a different spot for you. We'll figure it out together. Yeah. And with that, Doug, let's hit that big finish. What do you say?
Let's do it.
We remember how to do this too, right?
I think so.
Botch of the week.
You know what? I could rant about a lot of angry old man kind of things tonight, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to call out what I see as a real botch and almost like the comedic after effects of it for those keen-eyed old marks. Because I'm watching SmackDown because, again, my TV recorded it, and Andrade's in the ring with Carmelo Hayes. Andrade legit almost drops Carmelo. Carmelo gives him a bit of a receipt. It looks pretty stiff. I noticed Andrade was not happy with that receipt and gave Carmelo his own receipt that was incredibly stiff looking. And I just kind of had to laugh. I was like, well, there's the botch. There's the receipt. But, okay, you probably really don't give a guy a receipt for, something like that. I mean, mistakes happen. I mean, if he hits you too hard, sure, but if he
Yeah.
didn't drop him, he almost dropped him. He did. Yeah, I'm thinking Andrade didn't really need a receipt for that, and I don't think Andrade thought he did either. Because that next, I think it was a forearm or something like that. It was stiff.
All right, I'm gonna have to go back and look for that moment now because I watched it like really late, and I remember thinking like this is a really good match, but maybe it was because a lot of it wasn't being pulled.
and then the pros, both of them being pros, they go right back to it. You know?
Okay, we're good now. Everyone got their hit in.
Everybody understands what this is all about. It doesn't. Was it Charlotte and Nia Jax back in the day when it just completely melted down in the ring? Yeah, none of that. Everybody recognizes what's going on and gets right back to it. But yeah, it was a great match too, by the way.
So my botch also is not very, actually mine's even less serious than that because like you said, the actual botch. And this is something that I could have mentioned anytime in the last month, but we haven't really been on in the last month because of our hiatus. And so I have to just say that Top Flight is one of my favorite teams in AEW. And just because you are named Top Flight and you were already cool does not mean you have to dress like a Delta airline crew. Just maybe a little too literal with the Top Flight thing.
That's why
I could have done without that.
That's why Action Andretti's so mad right now. It's like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
Why are we dressed like pilots?
Give me that sandwich. I'm going to throw it against this truck. Stop it.
I don't know. It makes me laugh. And I'm not sure that I want to laugh at Top Flight because they're too good.
They are good. Absolutely.
That's my botch. Doug, performance of the week. Performance and or performer. What do you got?
So, yeah, man, this one's one of those tough things. So I'm going to have to go with the tribal chief here, man, because anytime he shows up now, it is just so great. And I love that this week on SmackDown, big SmackDown for WWE, their first SmackDown on USA, cage match, the entire bloodline's in the ring. He goes into the cage, turns around, looks at the door, and goes, yeah, okay, shuts the door. And then you realize the one guy isn't the guy in trouble. It's the other four guys that are now trapped in the ring with him. But of course, Jacob's not in there. Jacob had already gone over. So really, there's just three in there. But, just everything about that, the end of it, when he's like, let me make myself clear, I'm still, I haven't changed, and rocking the whole tribal chief thing is almost a tweener at this point. So you see this slow burn to the babyface side, and dude just nails it. And I can't believe I'm such a Roman Reigns mark at this point in my life, but I am. And he
the work is good, man. The work is still strong, and it's a completely different character he's evolving into, and the interplay between him and Cody, acknowledging the history and not just ignoring the fact that, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, like there's still some hesitation, some lack of trust. Like they all played the roles perfectly in that.
Absolutely.
But it does center around the fact that, and this is something we'll talk about more, I'm sure, moving forward. We have some episodes coming up where this is going to be a topic too, but like, Cody holds that title, but it's obvious that Cody is not the center of the WWE universe, at least at this moment.
He really isn't, man. He really is not.
My performance of the week, I am giving it to Raw going to 2 hours. What we talked about at the beginning. This is something that wrestling fans have asked for 12 years? I mean, yes. No one asked for the 3 hours to begin with.
That. No.
And it just, I think once Seth Rollins actually was quoted as calling 3-hour Raws aggressively long. Yes. And that's the way they felt. It's like accurate, it's just no, maybe arrogant. That's arrogantly long, I think is the word he used. Whatever word he used, he was right, because it is almost arrogantly long to take a wrestling show, which from the days of WTBS and World Championship Wrestling, like 2 hours was the right length for a wrestling show. Maybe you had an hour, maybe the bigger shows were 2. When they started, Nitro started it, stretching it to 3. That's when the quality went down. And even on a show that is the flagship, it is the most watched wrestling show not just currently, but in the history of television,
Mm-hmm.
Raw is the wrestling brand. And for 12 years, it has arrogantly long been stretched out to those 3 hours. Going back to 2 is got to be my performance of this week.
I'm not going to disagree with that, man. It is a great choice.
And Doug, for match of the week, I have watched maybe 12, 13 hours of wrestling over the last 48 hours. So I'm getting caught up on the most recent stuff. There was a lot of good matches this week. I really had several that I could have had as match of the week. What's your pick?
So here's, there was a lot of good stuff, all week long, but and this, I don't even remember the second person in this match, quite honestly, but I remember that this match sticks out as a match of the week for the storytelling, and this guy was tied with the Tribal Chief, but I think the Tribal Chief, WWE is firing on all cylinders right now. Good for them. But I am really enjoying this tale they are telling with Wheeler Yuta. And I think everything that was done on Collision Saturday night with Wheeler and his story, I legit thought he was going to lose to this guy. I can't even remember his name, with this other dude who's his cousin or whatever, just because he was so distraught and had the whole Brian Danielson thing in his head and everything that's going on with Blackpool Combat Club. But then he turns it around. Just the that is the match for me because of the storytelling involved in it. Not not aggressive flippy floppy, because I love those flippy floppy guys. Big beefy men out there slapping each other. Nothing like that. But just the storytelling in that match, and more, and just as much Yuta's partner in that match. And I don't even remember the guy's name again, but that's the match for me this week.
I am all about Wheeler Yuta getting more airtime and having his character evolve, because he is sort of the understudy in the Blackpool Combat Club. This gives him more of a chance to grow and sort of show what he's capable of. And what he's capable of in the ring is phenomenal. And then obviously he shows now a mastery of the storytelling art as well. That's a good choice. Again, I said there was a lot. I could go with Charlie Dempsey versus Javon Evans in the Heritage Cup match, which was incredible. But I'm going to go more mainstream than that. Actually, I could even go Opera Cup last night. MLW had Fightland, and Mystico versus the TJP match. I actually think was even better than the finale, which was Kenta and Mystico. But yeah, and it was great. So again, a lot of good wrestling, but I'm going definitely mainstream. The premiere of SmackDown on the CW, the opening match, Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. For the match, for the storytelling, again, that one also had a great story and storyline elements that set the stage for what's coming next that came out of that match. I thought it was actually stronger than the match the two had headlining SummerSlam. So,
I didn't have a lot of expectations for that match, but it really, really delivered.
And I think the crowd helped it, because the crowd was like eating it up.
And it was a great way to kick off SmackDown on a new network.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're not turning the channel 30 minutes uninterrupted with your world champion out there in a cage match against what now is his current big foe, as well as the whole bloodline backs, behind the scenes, what's going on with the bloodline, knowing that would factor in. It was must-watch TV, and it was executed perfectly by all those involved. So definitely go see Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. Go watch Collision, like Doug said, and see Wheeler Yuta develop. And heck, go watch Fightland, and if you got a chance to see the young Javon Evans taking on Charlie Dempsey for the Heritage Cup on NXT. Because, Doug, you got to be watching some NXT.
I do need to be watching some more NXT.
Next week, that is going to be our topic when we join you again live next Sunday at 8 p.m. here on our Facebook channel, and then on demand on Facebook and YouTube. We are going to be talking about the era that people don't talk about nearly as much. No, not the Triple H era. We're going to talk the HBK era. HBK, in particular, saving NXT. NXT was the original Triple H laboratory, and now that
Yep.
Triple H is helming the entire ship, HBK has been given the NXT baby, and he has completely erased the dreaded 2.0 era and
Yeah,
has
that's
got us
terrible.
somewhere between what the 2.0 era was trying to be with what
Mhm.
the black and gold
Black and
was.
gold,
It's the
yeah.
perfect mix of the old school NXT while still focusing primarily on all the accumulated talent that WWE has down in their performance center. Firing on all cylinders, the HBK era, HBK saving NXT. That is next week's topic. Until then,
Go watch some wrestling.
thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks.